Hello everyone, I'm Treasure Ife, your instructor, and in this lesson we'll be going into modeling. Specifically, what exactly is modeling? So, it's going to be a very theoretical course, but it's a very interesting one. Be sure to check it out and enjoy. For the previous two chapters, we've been using Blender's default models. However, in this chapter, we're going to go over how to create your own model. But before we go into the practicals in Blender, as usual, we first need to take a theoretical exploration of the subject of modeling. So what exactly is modeling? Modeling is simply put the act of making models. The art of making models. So that might not make sense. So what exactly are models? So models are simply three-dimensional representations of an object or a person. Before we had 3D softwares, we had sculptors. So the art of modeling started from the sculptors. So if we had a clay sculptor, he would create a three-dimensional representation of a person in his clay sculpture. So that three-dimensional representation of the person that he has sculpted would be called a clay model of that person. So it is not the person, it is a representation of the person. However, it's not a painting. It is a three-dimensional shape. So the process of sculpting the shape is what is now called clay modeling. So the result of clay modeling is a clay model, and that clay model is a representation, a three-dimensional representation of a person or an object. However, in the 3D world, we don't use clay, obviously, for modeling. Instead, we use what are called polygons. However, polygons are just one part of a couple of elements that make up a 3D model. So let us explore what exactly are 3D models made of. So 3D models are made of four things actually: vertices, edges, faces or polygons, and meshes. A vertex is the unit of, is the like the atomic unit of a 3D model. Two vertices connected together makes an edge. Three or more edges connected together makes a face, and a couple of faces connected together makes a mesh. And a mesh is what creates a 3D object. So what is a vertex? A vertex is simply just a dot or a point. Honestly, that is all a vertex is. So while a vertex can exist on its own, a vertex can't really do anything. So in the context of creating a 3D shape or a 3D model, a vertex becomes a place where two edges can meet. So a edge is simply just a line. So where two or more lines meet and connect together, the point where they connect together is what we call a vertex. So those lines are just called the edges, while the connecting point is called a vertex. So now, if we just have two lines, two edges, and they connect together, and we just have a vertex, you can see that we don't have a shape yet. It's just kind of floating in space. It's has no closure. It's not closed. It's not a shape yet. It's just a line. For these edges and vertex to become a shape, it needs to connect together. And an edge can only connect with itself when it has at least three lines. So when it has three lines and it connects together, then that connection is called a face or a polygon. Some of you might remember polygon from secondary school mathematics because that is honestly what it is. You have a triangle. A triangle is a polygon that has three sides. In 3D, we call triangles tris for short. So this is edge 1, edge 2, and edge 3, and vertex 1, vertex 2, and vertex 3. Three edges, three vertices. And if the shape has four sizes, it's called a quadrilateral or quad for short. The quadrilateral has four vertices: vertex 1, vertex 2, vertex 3, vertex 4, and four edges as well. However, some people might ask, well, isn't it a square? It's not. Yes, a square is a quadrilateral, but a quadrilateral doesn't have to be a square, because a quadrilateral just means any shape that has four edges or four vertices. A square is a quadrilateral. A rectangle is a quadrilateral. A parallelogram is a quadrilateral. A trapezoid shape is a quadrilateral. I don't remember what the shape is. It's also a quadrilateral. So long as it has 4 edges, it is a quadrilateral. So we also have 5 edges, we have 6 edges, we have 7 edges and above. However, in 3D modeling, anything higher than 4 polygons, anything higher than a quadrilateral is just called an n-gon. And if you remember the word n in mathematics, n just refers to unknown. So we say n number of things, because in 3D, it is not advised for your polygon or your face to have more than 4 sides. Because once you have more than 4 sides, it becomes difficult to manage. Your mesh or your 3D shapes begins to have some glitches. It begins to glitch out. It begins to have artifacts. It becomes very difficult to deform, and you might have difficulty, creating things like edge loops and all that, but you'll find out more about that. But the best and most optimal way of creating a 3D model is to make sure that that model is made up of triangles or quadrilaterals. So now a triangle on its own, or let's just say quadrilateral on its own, it doesn't exactly create a 3D shape. It's just like a square. It doesn't have a form yet. However, when you link multiple squares together and they go around, link them to the point that they create a 3-dimensional form, then this linking of multiple faces together is called a mesh. A mesh in its technical terms is a giant shape that is made up of smaller interconnected or interlaced shapes. So that is what a mesh is. So now, if we take a cube, we have a square, but that square, when you connect this square together, you have a cube. And one more thing that you can do to a face is that you can make that face have more faces. That's what they call subdivision. And from there, you can even deform the shape even more and make even complex shapes. So the entire concept that I'm trying to pass across here is that every single 3D form that you have ever seen is made up of smaller squares, more accurately quads, or small triangles that are just put together to create this giant 3D form. The more polygons that a 3D object is made of, the more easier it is for it to deform, or the more clearer the shape is. Think of it like a picture. The higher the resolution of a picture, the clearer that picture is. If the picture is low resolution, the picture will not be clear. If the picture is high resolution, the picture can be very clear. Likewise, in the world of 3D, the higher the number of polygons an object has, the clearer that object details can be. If it's a human model, you can make the bend of the nose very clear if it has a very high density of polygons. But if it doesn't have a high density of polygons, this is where you have PS1 graphics of games whereby these characters look like they are blocky, or it looks as if they are square one kind. If you play GTA San Andreas, you remember how the hands, it's as if the hands didn't have any form and all that. It's because they had a limited number of polygons, very few polygons. So if you have a high number of polygons, you can have a much more detailed model. However, the cost of a more detailed model is that if you have too many polygons, it means that the computer has to calculate more whenever it's processing your shape. The same way when it comes to picture, the higher the resolution of a picture, the larger the file size. Likewise, in 3D, the higher the density of the polygons, not only the higher the file size, but also the more demanding that shape will be computationally for your computer to calculate or for your computer to display. So if you're on a low-end computer, I would not advise that you download high-resolution models. Instead, find a way to make lower resolution models, or find a way to manage your polygon density in your scene so that you don't end up hanging your computer or crashing your computer. Yes, higher resolution models look better, but you need to find ways to manage it. So to take any key thing away from this video is to understand that a giant 3D object is made up of smaller shapes, smaller triangles, or smaller squares that just come together to create that illusion of that giant 3D shape. And those squares or those polygons, those faces, are made up of edges or tiny lines, and those lines are connected by vertices, which are tiny dots. So in Blender, you see these things live, but I just want you to have the concept that fancy object, no matter what the 3D object is, it is made up of polygons. So as a result, you can literally make any 3D object you can imagine. You just need to think about, okay, fine, what kind of polygon is this thing made of? How do I position these polygons together to make that shape? So that is the foundation of modeling. Modeling is the act of putting these faces and edges and vertices together and manipulating vertices edges and faces so that we can create a 3D object or a 3D mesh or a 3D form. So if you join us in our next video, we're going to go straight into Blender and we're going to create our first 3D model. And that's it for our overview on what exactly is 3D modeling. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you learned something from that. Be sure to check out our next lesson where we'll be going into practicalizing all of these concepts in Blender. For this video, like and subscribe, share, and if you have any questions about this lesson, be sure to leave them in the comment section and I'll be sure to answer. Thank you.
Enjoy all these premium courses in this channel for free.
Time to take a chance to fly, feeling like I'm 10 feet high. Nightmares call, you can't deny. Better find a place.